Hey, good morning. Happy Monday. It's President's Day, February 19th. Do you realize it's now been 1 year that President Carter has been in hospice? Oh, what else is going on in this world? Yesterday, the NBA, the East beat the West 211 to 186. Come on, was that a basketball game or an embarrassment to the NBA? I don't think there was any defensive play that was in that game, which is kind of sad because you want to see your favorite players try their best, and it probably wasn't that way. That's my 2 cents on the NBA. Other thing is, following up on Super Bowl last week, that mess at the parade, I guess teenagers got into a disagreement, pulled out guns. Why are they carrying guns? And started shooting. Anyway, Kansas City has a problem that they have to figure out, but you know what? It's indicative of the world right now. Hey, anyway, let's get to today's topic. That's right. Today we're going to talk about telemarketing scams and whatnot. Every so often I have to do continuing education for what I do for a living here. And just in January, I had to do continuing education for money laundering. And money laundering is typically a very boring topic for me. It talks about placement, layering, and integration. But this time, a good part of my money laundering class, first time ever, that I've experienced, was on telemarketing and scammers. It talked about how even the smartest people can fall victim to telemarketers and scammers. People are very vulnerable when they're lonely and isolated, when they are financially disadvantaged, and when they're financially well off. It's very easy for elderly people to fall victim to telemarketing. And some of those telemarketing things can be romance, focused for grandparents. They call you with saying that they're the FBI or the IRS, all sorts of financial schemes. And they also look to somehow try to take over your accounts. In my industry, there's a very popular common scam that is called the imposter scam. What's an imposter scam? Haven't heard of that one before. Well, this is where some guy calls you up and says that they're from, in my case, the MLD Agency, and they represent themselves as the MLD Agency. And then I find out about it because you will call me up and say, I've got a question about that insurance policy I sold you. Well, I didn't sell you anything. I use a very specific platform. Even if you go into my website and you click on a link, it shows what the MLD Agency has sold you. So I asked you, who sold you this? Well, it was some guy who had this accent, and I don't remember his name, but after I hung up with him a few minutes ago or an hour ago or whatnot, I have a question, and I looked on my caller ID, and you appear on my caller ID. So you sold it to me, right? No! So yes, these telemarketers are, prospecting and preying upon people who are lonely, people who need money. Here's one. They are scamming people who have a desire to help somebody else. And then, of course, they're preying upon people's fears. Just think, it's not going to happen to me, but today's situation may not be tomorrow's situation. So any type of information they can get from you where they can follow up with you tomorrow, because your situation might change and you might be their next victim. And these people can be calling from anywhere. They can be calling from Iran or some other undesirable country. How do you know? A couple times when they've called me, I asked them where they're calling me from, and one guy said, I'm calling you from Pittsburgh. And I said, hey, how do you like them Pirates? And of course, he didn't know what I was talking about. You can talk about, is there a rivalry between the Pirates and the Phillies, or between, the Penguins and the Flyers, or between the Steelers and the Eagles? They have no idea because they're not local. And even if they are local, why would somebody want to be talking to somebody in Pittsburgh opposed to in my area here in St. Charles, west of Chicago? And then when do you answer the phone? Hello, and you hear it. Hello, this is Rachel, or my name is Evelyn, and I'm calling from... Yeah, trust me, it's not Rachel Green from Friends. So who are these people? So you're listening to a very, very good answering system, pre-recorded and whatnot, and they lead you along. But if you listen to them more and more, you kind of go, yes, 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 because you know about it. And then they transfer you to, as what they say is a licensed agent, right? No! I've asked them at times for what's referred to as an NPN number, National Producer Number. They don't know what that is. Then they're not a licensed agent. You know, and when they started asking me questions like, why do you need to know that? Well, I need to clear you for the licensed agent. But they're going to start asking questions, what we call PII, personal identifiable information. Do not give them your personal identifiable information. That thing can be things like your address, your phone number, your email. More importantly, driver's license, Social Security numbers, your Medicare claim numbers. What you're doing then by giving them that is you're giving them a license to steal your money. I cannot tell you how quickly you should hang up on these telemarketers, because mostly they're scamming you, and you need to protect yourself and your money and your financial security from people like this. I can tell you that the last few weeks I've kind of had limited work. I had a surgical procedure done, and my first week it was very annoying. I'm trying to relax and get rested up, but I'm getting all these phone calls. Last week I'm getting all these phone calls. In fact, last week, from Monday morning at about 7 o'clock until Friday at 3 o'clock, I got 298 phone calls in less than a 5-day period. So that's averaging out probably right around 59 to 60 phone calls a day. How aggravating, both aggravating and annoying is that? And for me, because they're coming in with names on there, I have to answer them. And then I get the same type of thing. In fact, last week I was talking to a client, and guess who called me? You're going to love who called me last week when I was talking to a client. Muhammad Ali! Yes, he's calling me. So I went through the whole spiel with him, and finally I asked the guy, why did he use Muhammad Ali? And he says to me, well, if I hadn't, you wouldn't have picked up the phone. Well, that was true. You know, I've even seen where some of you parents have told me that they're contacting your teenage children with their cell phones. Why is that? Well, a lot of times because those cell phones are in the parents' names. Wow, the scammers that are out there. So there's various categories of, scammers out there. There's smishing, phishing, and spear phishing. Those are other things that are going on. Maybe I should do a topic on each one individually. I don't know. If you want so, hey, shoot me a quick email at the bottom of the screen, and if you want me to learn a bit more about smishing, phishing, and spear phishing, let me know. So, hey, what's going on at the MLD agency? Well, you know what? The last two were pre-recorded because I knew I had to have a surgical procedure. I'm recuperating just fine from that. But last week we were working on a couple groups renewals, adding one new business to the MLD agency, dental insurance, and a couple of Medicare supplements. So even though I've been working a little less trying to recover from this, I've been out there working for you and all. So I hope everything's gone well for you the last couple of weeks and all. Until next week, please take care.